Finally, a Ford 7.3 Godzilla to tear down on this channel. I'm sure many of you have been patiently waiting for me to get my hands on one of these, and I finally found one that met the right criteria. Now, there's a couple reasons why I haven't had one up until this point, and the biggest one being that the core charge that Ford assigns to the 7.3 is $1,800. That is a ton of money to spend on an engine that I'm simply going to take apart. Another reason, very valid reason, is that most of the local Ford dealerships around here will not sell me any cores for any amount of money. So you combine those two things and it has made it very hard for me to get one. But I finally found a place that was willing to sell me one of these engines for a relatively reasonable price. And that is what we're going to tear down today. This 7.3 is out of a 2023 Ford Econoline, an E350 cutaway van, which is shipped as an incomplete vehicle and then turned into things like box trucks. And that's what this is out of, a prominent rental company's box truck. We all know how rental vehicles are driven with the utmost prudence and care. Probably not, which is why it's not a surprise that this engine has less than 70,000 miles on it and it's already on my stand. Now, I did look up some information on these things and it seems that the van makes a lot less power than the truck, and it seems to be the biggest difference is in the tune. The van makes 300 or 325 horsepower and the truck makes over 400 horsepower. It's a huge disparity for it to only be the tune. Now, the whole reason I do these teardowns is to sell parts. And I'm going to do something a little bit different in this video. Normally I would sell all the individual pieces, but I'm going to tell you right now, you are going to be unable to buy anything out of this engine because you're going to have to buy the whole thing. I'm going to sell this as a complete builder kit as long as it's a rebuildable engine. I am really backed up on selling individual parts. So if someone wants this as a builder, I will pass the same good deal I got on to the next guy, and you'll get a free teardown and inspection before you buy it, but you'll have to wait to the end of the video to hear what I paid for it. So I'm going to have to do some things out of order for my normal teardowns. The first thing I want to show you is that the plugs are gone out of this head, and it looks like this head has either been wire wheeled or cleaned or replaced. And I say replaced because it's clearly been off. You can see there's a head gasket on this cylinder head, and there is not one over here. So the head is bolted to the block, which means the head's been off. And I don't know if it even has valve train in it. So I'm going to be very careful turning this thing over. But before I turn it over, I am going to pull the remaining 4 spark plugs out of the left-hand bank so we can look at those, and then we'll get to normal procedure. So these 4 spark plugs actually look pretty good. There's nothing bent or destroyed. It looks decent. I'm hoping there's not a lot of damage in this engine. All right, let's see if this thing turns over. It's not a... It's fine. Oh, it feels crunchy. Oh, it was just a little stuck. It doesn't feel great, but I don't feel like I'm bending things. I feel like it's got some rust in the cylinders. That's unfortunate. Okay, well, we know we can get it apart. Next, we're going to peel off the valve cover from the passenger side. Well, that's not really installed, no. So right off the bat, I can tell this is all loose and not really put together all the way. Probably a dumb idea to turn it over and put a bunch of stress on where the rockers bolt in, but I mean, how are you gonna know? So I don't see anything odd outside of the fact that this is all really clean, and then there's looks like there's transmission fluid down here by the valve springs. I don't really know what that's about, but we're gonna go ahead and get these rockers up, pull the push rods out, and we're that close to pulling the cylinder head. All right, now we can slide the push rods out. These all look brand new. So the rockers all look really nice. I don't see any issues here. These are really robust. Compared to the rocker arms I'm used to looking at, these are very nice looking. I don't see any damage where the push rods go. There's not a ton of wear where they press on the valves. All of the push rods look nice. The ends are all glossy. Nothing's bent. So far, no trouble. All right, let's see if these head bolts crack loose or if they just are in there loose, finger tight. Oh yeah, they're not in there whatsoever. I'm just gonna go ahead and zip these out. I never loved being behind somebody. That sounds wrong. All right, let's lift the head. Well, something is making a bunch of racket on my table. Bunches, Googleplexes of carbon. Oh, that's not good. This is gonna need a little work. Still got lifters in it. That was a concern I had. But it does have some damage. First look at the pistons and the bores. And there's definitely been some moisture sitting in here, and this one has a lot of vertical wear. It is pretty bad. Both sides of that piston, or that cylinder I should say. I don't see any marks on the pistons for a piston to valve. It's interesting too that they have the slit cut between the bores. I don't like to see that. I feel like a hole drilled between the two would be better. I wouldn't want to put that at the sealing surface of the head gasket, but outside of that, it just looks like it sat outside somewhere perhaps. I also noted that there's a bolt missing out of this lifter tray, but the lifters are still present, so we'll have to check those out. But first, let's go look at the cylinder head. This head clearly sat on the bare iron block with no head gasket for quite some time around moisture, because there's a lot of corrosion through here. I think this would all clean up really easily. One easy pass would probably make this head nice. I don't see any other weird factors outside of the fact that it's kind of got some vertical scratches, or vertical. It's got some long scratches this way, and I don't know what they normally look like. Once we pull the other head, we'll see if that looks normal or not. But it's clear that this head wasn't really run in this engine. There's no signs that this was ever fired. It's as clean as a pin. It's time for some science. That one rocks a bit at the bottom of the bore. They all do a little bit. Nothing terribly abnormal. All right, let's go ahead and pull this tray out. That's going to come with one lifter. That comes with one lifter. Let's go ahead and pull all the lifters out. We're going to look at all of these once we get the other head removed. Let's go ahead and remove the left-hand valve cover. Well, that looks more used to me. Yeah, I don't really see anything too wild in here. It's definitely, is a head that hasn't been apart. Unlike the other side. The other side was clearly someone slamming it back together. So there's definitely some debris in here. But I'm trying to figure out, I think it was from while it was stored. Because it was missing whatever goes on the cap on the valve cover. I don't know if it's the oil cap or what. But it doesn't look like debris from an engine coming apart. Go ahead and crack the rocker arms loose. They're certainly not very tight. Same story on this side of the engine. No wild wear on the push rods or the rocker arms. They all look good. I don't see any signs of oiling trouble. No varnish buildup or anything like that. Go ahead and see if the head bolts will crack free. Oh, they're not even tight at all. What the heck's going on here? I'm just going to buzz these things out. Someone's been here. Kind of disheartening. I was hoping to get a core that no one was into. And off with this head. Yikes. Well, that's not so great. It is not so great at all. The head gasket looks okay, but that's the only thing that looks okay, as there's clearly a ton of rust in two of these cylinders. That sucks. I mean, it's not the end, it's an iron block. I'm sure it can be machined. I hate to say this happens, but this happens sometimes. People store these things outside, they get full of water, rainwater, no intake, and if the valves are open, you have damage like this. It's really unfortunate. Something that can be machined out with new pistons, oversized pistons, I'm sure. They make all that good stuff for this engine, which it may need anyway based on the damage we found on the other bank, but I still don't like to see it. And the cylinder head looks all right. Clearly this cylinder had a ton of moisture in it. You can see there's a water line. Yeah, water does engines no good. No good at all. All right, it's time for some science. Nothing seems out of the norm. They rock a little bit, but we'll roll with it. Let's go ahead and pull the trays so we can remove the lifters. So everything looks pretty good until it doesn't. And you look at this lifter right here. So this thing, it does spin, but if you look really close, there's a missing needle bearing in there. It has a little bit more play than normal, and the camshaft will probably be scored up from this as well. But that roller is definitely chewed up. The rest of them look pretty good. It's just the one that would certainly make a noise. I'm gonna spray a little penetrator in the cylinders. Hopefully trying to free some stuff up. When it comes time to push these out, it'll make it just a little easier. Let's see if we can get this harmonic balancer bolt out. Let's let my compressor charge up a little bit. Yeah. So I don't really love how this fits. I have the long rod from my harmonic balancer kit, and it seems to be a little on the short side for this. Let's see if we can get all the arms in place. Nope, apparently not. This is a tool fail, not so much a design of the engine fail. The jaws of this thing are just not very good for what I'm attempting to do. No. Yeah, this is fine. Oh no, this is not fine. All right, let me hit it with the big impact. Now it's under some load. I only have about, I don't know, 3 threads. Not very promising. All right, let's see if this works. All right, that's as far as I can get it. I mean, it moved, but I need a longer rod. Man, I say these things on the channel that can be taken the wrong way. This is the long rod, I believe. Let me make sure this is the long one. Well, I was mistaken. I did have a longer rod. I wish I could say that more often. And we're off. Now it's time to tackle the front timing cover. We're going to start with the easiest bolts. Oh, these were loose. I think that's it. See if old Blue here will help us out. I feel like I'm going to break that. It's moving. It's just got to release from all the sealant. cover's off. Oh, look how clean it is in there. Cover looks nice. Oop, dropping bolts. Cover looks nice. I don't see anything wild in here. So this looks really clean and it looks perfect in here. I mean, look how clean the inside of the pan is. It makes you wonder if that's the pan off of this engine, off of a different engine. Everything looks nice and tidy. Now I'm just curious as to how the cam comes out, because that's the next step. We're going to unbolt this and see if we can get enough slack to get the chain off that. We may have to mess with the oil pump chain, but at least it has a chain and not a belt. First thing we're going to do is remove the tensioner. Ooh, that was action-packed. It has pretty clean oil in it. Let's remove this rail. Very small rail. Excellent condition. And that really doesn't give us a whole lot of slack, does it? Let's unbolt this stuff. Eventually parts are going to fall off. Is that enough to slide this out? Oh, yes. All right, so now we just have the chain debacle. I'm going to actually try to get this chain off of that. Let's see what we can do down here. So if I do one of these, and then I can maybe slide this on the back side. Does not seem to be working. I might have to pull the oil pan first. I will do almost anything but pull the pan, but I think that's what we're going to do. Let's get the oil pan off of it. Well, we're loose. I think this pan may have been from another engine. Actually, all the bolts are out and it hasn't fallen, so I don't think this pan was off. Or maybe it was, but it's still stuck to it. Oh, there's, that's not oil. That's not oil. Yeah, that's rainwater. And unfortunately, I can't give it back to where it came from because it's slightly contaminated, but that's probably not indicative of how this engine ran. It's more indicative of how it was stored. All right, so the first thing I think we need to do is this. So that this comes off of this like that and that. And then that slides off of this like that and this. And then you have a thing like this. And at that point, you can take this. I'm going to stop with that. You can probably slide it off like. And we can take this and do one of those. And not count on doing that. That was the retention plate, just fell. It's fine. Everything's fine. And now we can remove the camshaft. Try to be careful. It's coming out nice. And there you have it. There I have it. So this Ford 7.3 is equipped with time-release cam lobes. You know, if they had patented that technology several years ago, they would have made a ton of money off of the other manufacturers. But you can see how deep the groove is. And this is caused by a difference in speed between the roller and the cam lobe with insufficient lubrication. And a lot of people blame the adjustable oil pumps on late model engines and the low viscosity oil and trying to reduce drag to meet CAFE standards. And I think there is something to that because most of the fixes for this have to do with a better oil pump or bumping the idle to get more oil pressure at idle. It seems to be when you let an engine run for a long time at idle that this is what causes the majority of problems. But you can definitely see the lifter's bad. Cam lobe's bad, and I think that's what initially did this engine in. Because the rest of the cam, the rest of the engine so far looks pretty good outside of the cylinder walls. This is a very common failure from what I've read. Let's turn this engine over so we can work from the bottom up. It's going to leave a mess. Not too bad. I don't even have my pan underneath it. That was a mistake. it's not too big of a mess. So I just sent a close-up of the destroyed cam lobe to my buddy Bearded Fortec, to Anthony, and I said, guess the engine. And he guessed every engine that shaves cam lobes. 6.2 or 5.3, 5.7 or 7.3. Hilarious. So I'd like to know that I just sent the VIN from this engine over to Bearded Fortec, and he is looking up why this wasn't covered under warranty, because apparently, even though this was a cab and chassis, it is under the mileage and date requirements to where it should have been covered under warranty unless it got denied. So he's looking up that information, and we're going to get this oil pump pulled off. So here is the oil pump. I've put the gear back on it so we can make some noise. That's fun. All right, I'm going to stop playing with it, and we're going to get this off. Oil pump removed. I just got off the phone with Anthony, and he looked up the history of the van this came from, and it turns out that the van this engine is from is still under warranty, and yet it has 0 warranty history. Nothing, which means it's never been back to the dealership for any warranty repairs, and clearly it needed something. It would have been repaired for free, but they chose to fix it themselves. Why? Let's take this oil pump apart. Wait, that's the wrong way. All right, it is a vane style pump. And it looks really nice in there. I don't really see any issues per se. So here it is in operation. And I can look inside and it looks very clean. I'm not going to take all the pieces out because whenever I pull these vane pumps apart, they always look the same. They always have the same amount of little bit of wear on the vanes, a little bit of wear on the housing, but nothing catastrophic here. And this engine didn't have a major oiling failure. Now we're going to turn this thing over so we can start pulling the rods and pistons out. We're going to start at the front. It's much more hygienic that way. We're actually going to turn it over a few revolutions, and we're going to use the rods and pistons to push all the rings to as high as they'll go. It'll make pulling this apart a lot easier. So I can feel the rust. I think we're going to stop right there so we can start on the first two. So let's see if these will come out nice and easy. And now I'm going to rotate the crank to push these to the top of their bores. Looks like we're ejecting some shells, no big deal. There's one right there. All right, we're gonna use some help with this. We're moving. Okay, we're past the oil ring. Should be able to slide her out. Let's rotate the crank. Turn it over again. And we should be able to pull the bearing shells out. There we go. On to the next pair. Oh, without rods and pistons, this thing turns over like butter. Can't believe it. And now it is time to zip the main cap bolts out. I knew that was going to come out eventually. And I believe the last one is the thrust bearing. Very much so. And I got to contend with this rear plate, which I did not remove. Foolishly. Ooh, that is very glued on there. Oops, sorry guys. Oh yeah, we're fine, I think. Let's see if we can use the crank. Yeah, like that. Pop that main cap out of there. Easy peasy, lemon. Nope, not gonna say it. Question is, will this come out with the crank? I believe it will. It's probably pretty heavy. It's not too bad. We are gonna start off with the rod bearings. And there is some wear, but it's not awful. No deep grooves that I have noted. This all looks pretty good. This is probably the worst one right here, just because it's kind of glazed and shiny. Maybe these towards the rear, but again, they look good. Even for the miles, I think they look pretty good. Next, let's do the rods and pistons. This one's got a little bit of skirt wear. Not terrible. The oil rings are free of carbon, but there's a bunch of buildup at the top of the crown. Its neighbor, super rustified. Definitely has some moisture sitting in there. It would probably clean up, but something interesting happened with these two. Look at the damage to the skirts. No, this is not an Alusil Porsche engine. This is a Ford Godzilla with an iron block. So it wasn't related to that type of failure, but the damage is similar to the pistons. And that happened on both 3 and 4. Well, I don't even know if that's the right cylinder number, but the second pair back. Then you get a little away from that and only minor wear. I mean, yeah, that's kind of significant, but it's not as bad as the previous pair. Again, lots of nastiness. Most of this would come out pretty nice in our parts washer. And then you get to the rear pair, very little damage. There's no piston to valve contact. There's no damage of any sort anywhere notable on these pistons. And the main bearings are really nice. Almost perfect. A little bit of glazing in places, but nothing I would be concerned about. And since the bearings were so nice, of course, the crankshaft is beautiful. There's a little bit of a groove right here, but I can't feel it with my fingernails, so I think it's going to be fine. Although I will say Ford cranks are notoriously inexpensive new, like crazy cheap. I don't know how they make any money selling crankshafts. Let's look at these bores. So there's definitely some scratches in the front pair, and I'm going to do these in pairs for the sake of this discussion. This one's got a lot of corrosion in it. It's definitely going to need some machine work to be right. The second pair though, man, are these rough. Now they're not super deep. The scratches are not completely like, you know, I think you could machine these out. It would take new pistons. You need to go overboard for sure. But what's interesting is that it's the second pair. You can see all that damage. Let's get a better view on it. Both sides. And we get one cylinder back and you just get a ton of rust. But there's not as much of the same type of damage. A little bit, but not terrible. Here's one without a bunch of rust. There's a little damage. And you get all the way to the back and just a couple light scratches. And in this one looks pretty good too. So why is that? Why did the second two have a bunch of scoring on the side of the pistons and on the cylinder wall? Well, if you look, there's a lobe, 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 lobe. So there's 4 lobes and then 4 lobes. That's for each valve. So let's go over to our camshaft. Lobe, 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 lobe. And this pair is what's damaged. So what was likely happening is as this thing was chewing on itself, it was spraying the metal bits that came off of the camshaft at the sides of the piston because it's right in close proximity to what's going on there. And that debris is likely what caused the damage to the cylinder walls and the pistons. There's no other explanation. I don't see any signs this engine was overheated. That's another common reason. It could have been a clogged oil jet, I suppose. But why would it be on the second 2 cylinders since they're on a congruent oil circuit? We'll flip that block over and take a look. So I'm by no means an expert in these engines. This is the very first one I've worked on. But you have piston squirters for every piston. And the likelihood that one on each of these suffered a clog, whereas those didn't, and those didn't, kind of unlikely. Now, if it was a whole row of them, or the last 2, I could see maybe there was a clog, because I believe each bank is on its own circuit. I could be wrong here, but it wouldn't make sense that there's one of each. First, I'd like to mention that I love pushrod engines. They're simple, they're easy to work on, they have relatively few moving parts, thus they are generally more reliable than engines with many more parts, i.e. overhead cam engines. But the fact that we're dealing with this problem on nearly every single late model pushrod engine is a total folly. History has shown us again and again that we used to be able to make this stuff last, and all of a sudden now we can't make a pushrod engine that's not going to shave cams and eat lifters. It doesn't matter whether it's a late model GM, a Ford, or a Chrysler. They're all doing it, but the engines of yesterday didn't. The LA Series Dodges never did that. The 360, 318 wasn't an issue. Small block Fords, not an issue. Even the Gen 3, 5.3, 6.0, even 4.8s, they didn't have this problem. But all of a sudden, we start jamming these engines full of light viscosity oils, lowering their idle speed, and a culmination of that and all of the other technology we're cramming into these engines. And there's a caveat. And the caveat is, in certain situations, certain use cases, they will tear themselves up. And that makes these engines expensive. You know, I used to sell 5.3s because they got swapped into everything. Now I sell 5.3s because somebody's lifter died and it wiped the whole engine out. Now I will say this did not wipe the whole engine out, but I am curious that is the bore scoring, and I hate to use that term, is the cylinder wall damage and the piston damage very common with a bad cam and lifter? Because every engine has its thing. The Hemis, what those usually do when they kill a lifter and a cam is it usually wipes out a main bearing before it does any other damage. The cylinder walls will be beautiful, the rod caps, the rod bearings will be beautiful, but the mains will look terrible. GM, they trash everything. But this is kind of a unique situation that I haven't seen before, whether it's because it trashed the cylinder walls. So for those that work on these on a regular basis, when they eat a cam and lifter, because it's not if, but when, is this a good way to tell? Can you pull a plug and look into the cylinder and check that the cylinder walls are scored? And does that make the determination whether you try to fix it or whether you just replace the engine? Now, I did say at the beginning of the video that I would be selling this as a complete engine, buildable engine kit. And I still believe this is a very buildable engine. I think it would need some machine work, but I don't know how much. I'm not a machinist, but I still think all of these parts collectively are worth what I paid for it, which was $1,000. So whether you want to come pick it up or I got to ship it to you, you're going to have to pay shipping. I'm going to leave her email in the video description. I'm not going to put this on our website, but you can go to Importapart.com and peruse her inventory. I've been uploading parts cars almost every single week. I really hope you enjoyed this teardown. As always, I love all the comments, all the feedback, and even the criticism. I love it all, and I'll catch you on the next one.